That damn buzzing sound. Over the past month, I've been hearing this intermittent buzzing sound. At first, I thought I'd be able to tune it out, but it just became more obnoxious over time. It transformed into a constant, vibrating noise in the back of my head. It was difficult to focus on anything. It became so bad that I had trouble sleeping, and it's beyond me how my parents never noticed it. But you know what they say though, you lose your hearing with age, so I wasn't surprised when they gave me confused looks. Tyler, my neighbour, he heard it too, and I was relieved to hear it. It meant I wasn't going crazy. He's actually the one who brought it up. We were alone together playing video games in my room. So, with him at my side, I was determined to find the source of the noise. We searched my house first and placed our ears all over the walls. The buzzing sound never seemed to get any stronger or weaker, so we checked outside. My original thought was that something was wrong with the air conditioning unit. If I was right, it would explain how the sound transferred throughout the entire house. But that theory did turn out to be wrong. We stood beside the thrumming unit, watching the gigantic fan spin around. And yeah, the unit was vibrating, but it wasn't the sound we were looking for. However, we realised the sound was louder outside than it had been in my room. We searched my backyard, up and down, and we stopped at the wooden fence. We placed our ears on the fence and exchanged knowing stares. The sound was coming from beyond it. That was enough for both of us. We scaled the fence and dropped to the other side easily. The area beyond my backyard was filled with untouched forest. I'd been over there a few times when I'd actually kicked my ball there, but never deep enough to explore. My parents always complained about there being poison ivy everywhere, and they were right, it was. We skirted around it though, and created a path without a problem. It was really bizarre though. All we could hear now was this buzzing sound. Nothing else. I mean, we could barely hear the leaves and sticks cracking under our feet, and all other sounds seemed absent. There weren't even any birds singing. As we kept walking, the buzzing sound grew louder, and eventually, we couldn't even see my fence anymore. We stopped several yards from a cluster of trees, covered in tumor-like growths. We just stood there, staring at it. Neither of us could explain what they were. They appeared like they were part of the tree, as if the bark had bubbled outwards in these strange formations. Trees can actually develop a type of deformed growth. It's called a burl. I learnt this in hindsight. Naturally though, our first thoughts were to poke it, but both of us were too chicken to get that close. We grabbed rocks instead. It only took one toss. Tyler was a pretty good baseball pitcher. The rock collided with one of the large growths, and upon contact, the growth exploded outwards and sent chunks flying. Not even seconds later, the bees came. Thousands of bees. They swarmed out of the opening. They formed a thick, throbbing mass. Both of us screamed and we ran. I'd never run that fast in my entire life. The bees were right behind us. I felt stingers plunge into my arms and back, my legs. I don't remember hopping the fence or how I even got to my front yard, but I must have been screaming bloody murder. I stripped down to my underwear, and my mom, she started spraying me and the persistent bees with a garden hose. The icy pressurised water didn't hurt as bad as the welts that were beginning to form. I was ushered into the kitchen. My mom began meticulously removing the stingers with a pair of tweezers. She lost count of how many she removed from me. I was only allowed to change into dry underwear, since the stings needed to be iced. The swelling and welts had been unimaginable, and now I can understand how people can die from bee stings. I was forced onto my couch with the ice packs just all over me. The majority of the stings were on my back, so I lay on my stomach. I think I passed out. I woke the next day and was in the same position, but the ice packs were gone. My mum refused to let me change into comfortable clothing until she inspected all of my welts. Thankfully, the swelling had reduced significantly. Over a bowl of soup, I learned that my parents called an exterminator after the incident. Apparently, There had been bees angrily flying around everybody's gardens. By that point, everyone in the street couldn't hear nothing but the buzzing. The exterminator arrived, promptly, and he followed the trail of chaotic bees to the nest. The man actually told my parents that it had been the largest colony he'd ever seen. He sprayed so many chemicals, he didn't want anyone in the area. Not that anyone even wanted to go and investigate for themselves. The whole situation made me feel like a complete idiot. How could I have been so stupid? I smiled and thought of my only consolation, Tyler. I bet he suffered just as bad as me with these bee stings. I brought it up to my parents. I asked how bad his injuries were. But my mum, she gave me this petrified expression, one that I'll never forget. There was nobody behind me when I raced around the side of the house. She hadn't even been aware that Tyler had gone back there with me. I felt guilty. I felt beyond guilty. Horrible images of Tyler being swarmed and consumed. I swore he'd been right there beside me. What made me feel worse is that the exterminator, he never saw anyone. If Tyler had fallen behind, the exterminator would have known. He searched that whole area. A week went by, and Tyler was still missing. I decided to search the area for myself, but I wasn't going unprepared. I grabbed a can of my mum's hairspray and a lighter from the kitchen. If any of these bees were still kicking, I wanted protection. I hopped the fence and I moved slowly through the forest, my right hand clenched tightly on the hairspray. The distance to the nest, it was further than I remembered. I knew that I'd arrived when I heard a thick crunch beneath my shoes. I glanced down. I felt a shiver rush through my body. The entire ground was layered with bees, corpses of them. I couldn't even see the dirt or the grass in some areas. The bees were just piled on top of each other. I was on my last nerve when I approached the nests, trying my best to ignore the sickening crunches underfoot. I narrowed my eyes. I could see the nests that were destroyed around the tree. I cautiously nudged one of them. It crumbled to reveal thick wax and honeycomb. Dead bees that were trapped inside just oozed through the opening. It was enough to turn my stomach. I grumbled beneath my breath, and I began poking the nest with a little more confidence. I watched more of the pieces fall to the ground. That's when I heard it. The buzzing. It came back. My heart skipped several beats. I stumbled backwards and I almost landed in the disgusting ruin of dead bees. I sprinted back several feet. I raised the hairspray and the lighter. I watched the nest from all angles. These bees, they could appear from anywhere. They must have formed their nests through the cluster of the trees, and it was possible that their nests extended into the ground, even beneath the tree roots. I bit my lip. I waited for the swarm to appear like last time. But it never did. Instead, an odd, disturbing sight took me by surprise. I left the clearing, filled with dead bees. I stepped through several bushes, trying to confirm what I was seeing. My whole body quivered. I wanted to call out, but my voice just failed me. To be honest, that might have saved my life. Not 10 yards from me, standing there, it was Tyler. He was just standing there with his back to me. Something was wrong. His movements, they were off. His body twitched involuntarily. And when he took a step, his posture was rigid, while his arms were locked in janky positions. Despite the horrible feeling in my gut, I wanted to call out to him. My concern, it quickly transformed to fear. Tyler turned. His lolled head to the side is like his neck was broken. He knew I was there, but I know he couldn't see me, because his eyes were gone. Two dark sockets just stared back at me, and there were bees crawling out of them. Sores lay at his flesh. They turned to gaping holes, and a viscous fluid was running down his chin. I was too scared to move. I only ran when Tyler began lumbering towards me, swaying back and forth and twitching. For the second time I screamed, and I ran for the hills, trying to outrun the crashes coming from behind me. When I scrambled over the fence, I felt the wood scraping my skin, but I just didn't care. I pounded at my back door crazily, and I slammed it shut once my mum let me in. She didn't understand anything I was saying. I guess I was hysterical. But she gathered that I'd found Tyler's body in the woods. By the time the police arrived, they waited for me to calm down, so I could explain what I saw. I was a mess. They must have thought I was nuts. They searched the area where I saw Tyler, but they didn't find him. When they found his body, it was yards away by a creek. Tyler had been reclined on his knees. His forehead was against the ground. Immobile and dead. I refused to ID him. I couldn't see those empty sockets again. When I recovered from the event, I wanted to know what happened. I emailed the pathologist who performed Tyler's autopsy and practically begged for answers regarding my best friend. I needed a logical explanation for what I saw. He explained how they were going through a routine procedure when they hit a minor roadblock. When they cut into Tyler, dead bees just poured out. His body was literally bloated with bees. His eyes were missing, his jaw was broken, completely unhinged. His teeth were gone, his tongue gone, all replaced with just wax. The worst part was this. His organs were all gone. All that was left was skeleton, muscles, some tissue. Seemed to be the base for their extreme amounts of honeycomb, which was filled in his chest cavity. The pathologist's only theory was that the bees devoured his organs. But bees aren't carnivores.